Edmiston is a linguist who came to the Congo in the early 20th century, was appointed in 1902. And one of the projects she began after she got to the Congo was a dictionary of the Bushan language, which is the language of the Buba people. And that dictionary, the library owns an inscribed copy, which is over there, and you can see her inscription there afterwards. Just make sure you don't have like pizza hands. Because it's a gorgeous and important book for reasons that I'll talk about. So Althea Brown Edmiston, her papers are here as well. And so she began working on this dictionary, and she worked on it and worked to have it published for 30 years. She worked on the published version is over 600 pages. About 200 pages of that is a grammar, meaning a sort of narrative description. It's incredibly academic and scientific. And I should say as well, I think the Smithsonian website, that you can get a free sort of public domain ebook copy of this online as well. But I want to mention this for a number of reasons that are incredibly, incredibly important. She began working this soon after she arrived in the Congo. After it was done, she tried to have it published, and the Presbyterian Church basically said no, she can't publish it. And the reason they said no, that they didn't want to invest in publishing this, was because at this point, the language of the Bushan was considered a local language at a time that the colonial authorities were trying to promote the use of Chaluba as a regional lingua franca. And this is incredibly, incredibly important, even if it might seem somewhat technical. Because what happened was, during this time, the colonial authorities were trying to institute regional languages, which were based on, which would be local languages, but it wouldn't be the mother tongue of the majority of the people who were being expected to use that as part of the colonial project, and in very, very particular ways. And a lot of the educational work that was being done in Chaluba was being done by the Presbyterian Church. And this is one of, I think, the challenging ways that we need to think about the way that the church, was part of, sort of sustaining this colonial project in this way. And so part of the reason this was important was because sort of maintaining local languages in the way that Edmiston did was one that would not serve the colonial, would not serve the colonial. And I'm happy to sort of talk about this in a bit more detail. And some of the ways that it also manifests itself, when there were a group of white missionaries who were working on some of this same material, there were multiple sort of dialects within Bushan. And if you look at that map, the dialects that would be spoken in different regions across mission stations varied. And so whether or not the dialect would be the dialect of, that would be closer to Musheng, or would be close, in other words, where there were sort of, where there would be sort of traditional sites of sort of Congolese power, because there was a lot of even throughout, or in the early years of the colonial era, there was still a lot of sort of political autonomy in this region, right? And the idea is the maintenance of those languages would have contributed to maintaining that political autonomy in ways that the language, that these sort of language projects wouldn't accommodate. And this is something she insisted on doing, right? And so eventually, to make a very, very long story somewhat short, this is part of the kind of vexed relationship she had with the Presbyterian Church. And through decades of these kinds of rejections, what did she do? Well, when she was on her furloughs, she would go speak at Fisk and she would collect money. And she raised a lot of the money herself. Eventually, a women's auxiliary of the Presbyterian Church did help her publish it. And it was published in 1932, when the book had been done for probably about 15 years before that. And she was committed to doing that. She worked really hard to do that. And it relates to the sort of geography of the mission stations as well. And I had a project where I was working on a better map of where the African Americans on the Presbyterian mission were located. But they were sort of pushed away from certain seats of colonial power, basically, for reasons we can talk about. This is the inscription, which you can read there as well. This is for the copy that she donated here. So the other thing I want to mention, what are the other differences of her? And so at the same time, so she was working on this while white missionaries were working on the Chalupa dictionary as well. And I want to mention a couple significant differences. One is the grammar, right? So she was, it's very scholarly work, much more scholarly than the work of her white colleagues. And part of this, just from sort of the record, is the African American missionaries who were serving on this were, by and large, much better educated than their white colleagues on the mission. So one of the things she did, and I want to mention this here as well, which I don't see in any of the white authored dictionaries, is she named the Congolese who assisted her in this project, right? And these are the people who she names: Mbohi, Mwana, Shamingi, Mishamikohi, Mukuna, Nkashanga, Mabudi. A contemporary preface to a Chalupa dictionary reads, possibly the materials found between these covers may make some small contribution to the vast amount of data which is being accumulated by ethnographers and philologists concerning African languages and cultures. But our prime purpose in compiling this dictionary and our prayerful hope is that these pages in a definite and far-reaching way will be blessed and used of God to bring about the wider dissemination of the gospel of Jesus Christ in Africa. Okay? Contemporary to that, this is part of what Edmiston wrote. It is the language of the Kuba tribe who are considered the most superior people of all Central Africa. Their language is beautiful and highly inflected. The verb has a full conjugation and many shades of tenses. There are 10 classes of nouns, as well as all the other various parts of speech. Okay? The tones and interests here